Hey guys, Foxdrop here, giving you another champion guide today, and I'm going to be featuring Teemo, Jungle Teemo. This is something you guys might think is not very viable, but anything is viable if you're good enough with it in solo queue. Now, I really enjoy playing Teemo because he got a lot better in Season 3 with the Season 3 jungle changes, and also he's a very, very versatile pick. Teemo can fill out a lot of different roles in the team. He can be tanky, he can be an anti-carry, he can peel, he can split push, and he gives a lot of good map control, jungle control with his shrooms. So, without any further ado, this is how I play Jungle Teemo. Now, for some of the spells in Teemo, I run Flash, Smite. Smite, obviously, you have to get because you're jungling, and Flash is just, pretty self-explanatory. It's a really good summon spell. Maybe you could get Ghost as well. Maybe you could get Ignite or something like that, but Flash Smite works fine. Skill order, you get your ult whenever you can, obviously, and then you max your E. And I personally max my W next, and then leave my Q. I get 1 point in my Q, obviously, by level 4, and then leave it and max it last. You can max your Q, though, because it'll give you more burst in ganks, and it gives the blind a longer duration. But the way I play it, just running around everywhere, being a pain in the arse, W really works for me. So for Masteries, I like to go 21-6-3. 21 points in offense, just so you're doing the most damage possible. I mean, you're a carry at the end of the day, really. I get the double penetration as well, because the internet has taught me one thing. It's that double penetration is always good. Now, this Mastery spell sword is pretty decent. I like to go a lot of on-hit in my build with Teemo, which you'll see later on. And so that just contributes a bit to that as well. I get the bladed armor and defense to help with the mini creeps a little bit while I'm jungling, which just makes jungling a bit faster, because Teemo's AoE clear and isn't that great. And 3 points in utility, which is just for move speed. Move speed is really like one of the main stats in Teemo. Runes on Teemo, I run attack speed reds, which scales really well for your E, helps you jungle faster, and because I run a lot of on hit in my build, it helps with that as well for my damage output. Yellows, I just run armor, which is pretty straightforward. Blues, I get magic resist per level, just helps me be a bit tankier in the mid to late game team fights. And for Quints, I get move speed. Move speed is a really, really good stat on Teemo. It helps him run around really, really quickly. It means he's a bit of a pest, just a general pain in the arse as well. Now, any alternatives, I would suggest maybe you could get AD Quints, maybe AP Quints as well, or like AD Reds, maybe some attack speed Blues as well. But this is what I run, and this is what works for me. So my personal item build, which I like to run on Jungle Teemo, is that I will start with the Hunter's Machete and 5 health potions, and then when I go back, the first thing I buy is the tier 1 boots. And then after my tier 1 boots, I'll move my Hunter's Machete into a Spirit Stone, and then after that I get tier 2 boots, and I get Zerker Greaves with that. Attack speed really good with your E, helps you clear faster, and really attack speed is kind of what my build is based around. Now after that, I farm up for a Wit's End. Wit's End is really good. It's going to help you do a lot of damage with the on-hit damage. It gives you attack speed, so it kind of works off itself with that. Gives you a bit of magic resist. It's a pretty decent item. After Wit's End, I turn my Spirit Stone into the Lizard Elder item. What that does is it gives me a bunch of damage, which is always really good. But what's really interesting about it is the true damage proc on it. Basically, it's the red buff proc without the slow, and that is really, really, really strong with Teemo's poison, because basically it acts like another Teemo poison but doing true damage. It's really, really good item for him. You do crazy, crazy damage when you get this. Then after that item, I build a Phage, bit of health, bit of damage, but more importantly, 25% slow. And then I get a Malady, which is even more attack speed, even more on hit. And magic resist shred as well, which is really, really good because your E does magic damage. I mean, everything you do does magic damage. Your on-hit effects, magic damage. Your E, magic damage. Your ult, magic damage. Your Q, magic damage. It's all magic damage. So any spell pin you get in that sense is really, really useful. And then finally, I get Frozen Mallet from the Phage, which is giving me, makes me even beefier, and it gives me that permaso, which is really, really crucial on Teemo, which is really awesome. And finally, I get the Fura from tier 3 boots. I get Fura, which is very, very useful for kiting and catching up, keeping up with people if you're anti-carrying or something like that. And then finally, the last item to top it all off is a GA, which is what every carry should really get as their last item, if not before. Which really just makes the late game, you really need GAs and stuff like that. And now some okay items which you can get, which are decent items but which I don't build, would be Black Cleaver. At the moment, Black Cleaver is pretty broken, but that's going to be fixed pretty soon. IE is cool as well if you want to play more of an attack damage role. Phantom Dancer, if you're going down that attack damage role, is pretty cool as well. Banshee's Veil is a good defensive item. Gives you health, gives you magic resist. Sash is cool as well because if you get caught in CC, you're pretty fucked playing Teemo. Warmogs for the health. Health is never a bad idea. And Randwinds for the health, for the slow, for the armor. That's a pretty solid item. Now there are two items which I want to mention here, which are probably items you thought would be in the core build, maybe. And that is the Ruinous Hurricane, the new Hurricane item, and Static Shiv. Now what the Hurricane item does, basically, it's kind of like a team map for ranged characters. It just means that all your attacks spread out. It applies on hit effects. It's by no means a bad item, but I don't like it personally because it's not very good for team fighting because it doesn't really do anything for your single target damage that much. And if you want to make the most out of the passive, I think it's pretty situational. Now, Static Shiv is basically like the old Ionic Spark as well. It gives you crit, move speed, attack speed, and like an Ionic Spark every so often with the lightning, chain lightning thing. It's actually a pretty good item, but again, I don't like the way it fits into my role, the way I play. However, if you are pretty far behind and you feel yourself like you need to split push or something like that, then this Hurricane and this Static Shiv item together are really, really good. It really helps you split push, and this is something why Teemo is really good, because he can fill any role. So if you do feel like you need to fill that split pushing role, if you're pretty weak, if you feel like you're not going to have a lot of team fight presence, don't be afraid to get these items and just like sit on a lane for a while. Teemo's a very, very good split pusher. He'll go invisible, he'll run away, you can't catch a Teemo, so don't feel too bad if you have to buy those items. Now for roots on Teemo, you can actually level 2 gank top if you're purple side and start at red buff. If you level up your W second, then you can gank, and you're really, really quick with that red buff perma-slowing the enemy. It's really hard for them to get away from that gank, so that can be a really good way to get an early kill. However, most of the time, I just start at blue, and I'll full clear. I'll get level 4, and then I go gank or something, or I'll just recall or whatever. As far as early invading goes, early aggression against enemy jungler, it's kind of risky. It really depends who you're against, but I'd only do that if you do have red buff and you think you see an opportunity. But apart from that, don't be afraid to just farm your jungle and get along like that. So how do you actually play Teemo jungle? What are his playstyles like? Well, the first thing to say is that red buff is a pretty big deal breaker for Teemo. When you have red buff, you want to be as active as possible. You want to be having the most impact in the game as you can, because with that red buff, you've got a perma slow, you're doing butt tons of damage, which stacks with your E as well. You're just very, very strong with that red buff, so you want to be doing as much as possible. You can be ganking. With your maneuverability, there's no way anyone's going to be escaping from ganking, so you can be trying to force objectives, invading, stuff like that. That's all very, very well and good. However, when you do not have red buff, what do? Well, you can just farm. There's nothing wrong with farming in the jungle, but be careful, you cannot just farm. When you start doing things like that, that is when you stop having jungle pressure. When you have no jungle pressure, your team gets walked over a little bit. And if that happens, things start going very, very bad indeed, and they like start raging and stuff like that. So you always want to have at least a slight amount of jungle pressure. But like I said, farming is good. Teemo is very, very good late game. He scales very well with items. So farming is not that bad an idea. So the practicalities of actually jungling as well, what you should be doing, genuinely just jungling, is you want to be blinding the big creep in the camp when it's about to hit you. If the big creep's like throwing a punch at you and you blind it, then you're not going to take any damage from that creep. That's going to avoid any unnecessary damage taken. Also, you can be kiting stuff around, like the camp. The buffs are actually easiest to kite around because they're slower. But if you do have red buff, you can be kiting things around it and you won't take unnecessary damage there too. Now, the biggest playstyle tip I want to give about Teemo is his teamfight potential. Teemo's teamfight potential is absolutely huge. It's probably one of the biggest of all the junglers, especially late game. And there are really two different styles in which you can do this. You can either carry dive, which is just jumping on the enemy's carries, or you can peel for your own carries, which is just helping them out with the people who are screwing them over. Now, with regards to the first one, carry diving, it probably works best against enemy AD because you can utilize your blind. And if the enemy carry is not overly fed, then you're going to be able to one-on-one that carry fairly easily, or at least you're going to be zoning out the enemy carry, or you're going to be drawing a lot of attention to yourself, so be careful you don't get focused down too hard, but that's a really smart way to be playing. Alternatively, like I said, you can be peeling, and what peeling does is, I would only suggest to do this if you have like a red buff or your phage, or even better, frozen mallet, because then you can provide a decent form of CC with just your basic attack slows. but this works best against people like Aurelia, like the bruisers who jump on your carries, because again, you can utilise your blind. Aurelia's W's only got an uptime of a few seconds, and if you can cut the uptime of that W by making her blind so that she can't hit, so that her W is wasted, then that really helps your carry out. And again, late game you'll be having a lot of damage, so you can actually deal with these people almost one-on-one, but certainly with your carry as well. So that's two ways you can team fight. If you put down a good minefield as well, then you can be kiting people around, but do be careful of CC heading your way, because if you get shut down, you always want to be moving around because you're very fast. Make use of your maneuverability, and you can be very successful in team fights if you play Teemo well. So, what are things you need to be careful of when you are playing jungle Teemo? Well, first off, obviously CC. As a carry, CC can really screw you over, but especially Teemo, who relies on his kiting and his chasing, his maneuverability. If he gets stun locked down, then he's very dead indeed. Secondly, people who can actually displace Teemo in his stealth without necessarily targeting him, something like a Maokai Q, something like that. If he gets caught out with his stealth in a bad situation, then he is gonna die. Thirdly, AD casters. AD casters are very good versus Teemo because they don't necessarily care about Teemo's blind. They'll do a lot of damage to him just with their spells, and so that'll be a bit hard for Teemo to deal with. And finally, good maneuverability. People who are hard to kite because Teemo relies on that so much, or people who can chase down Teemo, fighting fire with fire really. So some good examples of this would be Lee Sin. Lee Sin is obviously immune to blind. Secondly, he's got good maneuverability with his gap closures, his slows, that would be a bit of an issue. And finally, he can remove stealth with he reveals stealth, with his abilities. Jarvan is an AD caster, so again, he doesn't give a toss about Teemo's blind. He's got good maneuverability with his EQ combo, and his ult will really shut down Teemo because Teemo can't kite while he's trapped in Jarvan walls. Maokai, again, is a good counter, well, I say counter, but he works well versus Teemo because he doesn't care about blinds, he does no physical damage with his basic attacks. His Q will displace Teemo in his stealth. His W is a pretty harsh CC, and that can lock him down in a team fight. And finally, his ulti is a very good anti-shroom tool, where if he runs through a minefield or something like that, he'll just put down his ult and it will negate a lot of mushroom damage. Now this concludes the jungle Teemo guide. One more tip I will give you is that the cuter skin you're wearing, the better you do because you antagonize the enemies and they make more mistakes when they're mad. Small tip for you. But I hope you found this useful. One good upside for playing like these unconventional junglers is that people don't really know how to play against them. Also increases your chance that you'll actually be able to play them yourself. Like if you pick someone like Lee Sin and you main him, the chances of someone else picking him or him being banned are kind of high, and the more you can just play one champion, then the more successful you will be in solo queue. So if you can master people like Teemo, cute little Teemo, then you will be more successful. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought about this guide, who you want to see next or something like that, what you want to see. Thank you very much for watching guys, and I will see you in my next video.